If you've been looking for a way to add hot water to your shed or small little barn or anything like that, then I may have a solution for you. So right here, we're checking out this 10-liter instant hot water heater, and it is really cool. It just requires electric, a water source, and then you can go ahead and you can hook it up for something like this. But first, let's see what comes in the box.
Got a product manual. It's like a release valve. Press that down to release. We press that down to release any of the steam pressure that may build up. Teflon tape. See that right there? The 2 ports on the top there. And some settings on the front. From what I can see, there's no other hoses included at all here. So we will have to see if I have hoses to connect this to the sink. We're just going to do a test so I can show you an example of what it looks like. So that should be pretty good and straightforward, but otherwise you will need to get the proper hoses to set up your hot water heater here. It's 1440 watts, so that's 14 amps. So you probably want to just have nothing else on that outlet. If you have a 15 amp outlet, 20 amp, you can maybe have one other small product too, especially when this is running. So wrap some Teflon around this, but this is going to screw into here, and this is just a pressure release valve. I'm getting ready to install a utility sink in our bunny barn, which is essentially just a 10 by 20 shed. Now with that, of course, I can get cold water to it, but what about hot water? Well, we've been checking this out. This is a 10-liter electric hot water tank heater. And I do have it hooked up kind of crazy just for the demo here because I don't have the sink hooked up in the barn yet. So it doesn't really make sense to do that. And I just don't have the time. But I wanted to see how hot this really gets. Now, I have tried other brands. I will say the ones that are really small, about the size of your hand, don't get them because they do not last and they only provide lukewarm water. Now, the other thing is you want to keep this on and plugged in all the time because obviously you're just going to keep the water nice and hot and warm. Now, this does get really high in the temperature. I'm going to check what the temperature is. It's been sitting here for about an hour or two, just keeping it really, really hot. But I will say it only took about half an hour to start getting warmer. And using 10 liters, you can really wash a bunch of things and be good to go. So I'll show you what my setup looks like right now. I had a bunch of different connectors and things like that to get this working, but then I just plugged it in here. You can see I have a garden hose and some other connectors. So yeah, it is kind of crazy for this setup, but just for the demo to see how it works and just the overall size. Now, it does come with some Teflon tape, depending if you need any adapters, things like that. I probably will need an adapter, or I did have to pick up an adapter going to the utility sink, but you can find that online, a bunch of different sources, whether it's a close hardware store or online. It is hot and boiling random. The water that just came out of there, it's showing around 160 or so. Because that's what that's picking up. So that's a pretty good temperature. It's definitely hot. So, I mean, you can't keep your finger in there that long because it definitely will burn you. But if you're looking for really hot water, you can do that by cranking it all the way up. And obviously, you can back it off to keep it, around the 100 and 120, depending on what you need. That's pretty impressive, though. Let's see how long we can go before it gets cold. That 10 liters is really a good size, especially for like a small utility sink in a shed or a barn. And it's starting to get cooler now. It's still nice, still relatively warm, and that does have cold water coming through. So right now this is on full blast, like coming out of a hose. Obviously you get more from a nozzle on the sink, but now it's pretty cold, or cooler. So like that, I'll just have to just shut it off and then let it warm back up. So that's pretty awesome. So if you had to do any type of pressure relief, you can just do it like that. Not too much pressure right now because it's just pressure coming from the hose, but that's a pretty cool thing. That's just a separate adapter that I picked up there. But you can see, again, this is like a completely whacked out setup. But I'm probably going to end up lowering this down
probably about 3/4 of the way or so, but I think it works really great. The biggest thing, like I mentioned, is, you want to make sure if it turns off for some reason in the winter months, that it's going to be completely insulated. Now, the inside is insulated, but if you put it like in a shed or a place where there's no insulation, you may run the risk of it bursting because, it might get just too cold and freeze the lines. But otherwise, I think you'd be good to keep it somewhere if it's indoors or whatever you need to do, because this is really good. Use it in a shed, use it by a pool. You want to get a hot shower, and it's a good size, easy to set up. Again, you may need some different types of connectors depending on how you want to set it up, but overall, I'm really liking it. But let's just go ahead, take a look where I'm going to set it up and show you what that utility sink looks like. So this right here is the utility sink that we picked up, and I'm going to hook this up. You can see just the normal faucet right there, but somewhere in this area, we do have some plugs and outlets around. Now that water heater does take about 14, or can take up to 14 amps at the max. So just keep that in mind when you're doing this. You probably don't want anything else on that same circuit. But with that said, once I get that all hooked up and in line, I will be able to hook this up, get cold water and hot water. And being that the size of it, I'm going to have plenty of hot water to do what I need. I'm not washing dishes. I'm not taking, a long shower, but I can fill this up a good amount or just run this through that faucet and be able to do whatever I need, whether it's cleaning something out or just having hot water for whatever need it may be. But it would be great to add to this shed here, may be good for your shed or your workshop. Be able to easily get hot water. Maybe it's in a small little barn, anything like that, where you do have power and a water source. I just really love being able to do that. You don't have some giant hot water heaters.